Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. This time, we're going to be talking about Jamestown. Specifically, Jamestown in 1621.
Okay.
So we're going back, way back.
Right.
And I think a lot of people know the basic story of Jamestown, the first permanent English settlement.
Mm-hmm.
But what a lot of people don't realize is that Jamestown was really on the verge of collapse.
Yeah.
Like for the first 15 years of its existence, it was just constantly struggling with disease and conflict with the Native Americans. And
Yeah. Yeah.
the biggest problem was the gender imbalance, honestly.
Probably.
And
Not a lot of women.
not a lot of women. And the Virginia Company finally was just like, okay, this is not working.
Yeah.
We need to do something drastic. And
Yeah.
so they came up with this idea.
Well, they were desperate, right?
They were desperate. And their idea was to ship over women
Ship over women.
to be brides
Yeah.
for the colonists.
Uh-huh.
So, think about that for a second.
Yeah.
56 women left behind.
They go to this wild unknown.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into all of that, all the fascinating details.
Yes.
But to really dive deep into this story, we're going to be looking at an episode of the podcast, Not Just the Tudors, which features historian Jennifer Potter. And she literally wrote the book on this. It's called Jamestown Brides, The Bartered Women of the New World. So, she is the expert on this.
Yeah.
And one of the things that really stuck out to me that she mentioned right away
Yeah.
is just how bad of a location Jamestown was.
Terrible choice.
It was a terrible choice.
They didn't know. They didn't know, right? But
You would think they would scout it out a little better.
yeah, you would think.
But, I guess they just saw, this is where the river meets the ocean.
Yeah.
This will be great.
Perfect.
Love it.
It was not great.
But it was right where the salt water met the fresh water.
Exactly.
So all of their wells were contaminated. Disease was rampant, especially in those summer months. You would not want to be there during the
Right.
summer.
Yeah, so on top of everything else that they were dealing with,
Right.
they had this fundamental problem with their location.
Yeah.
And then like we were saying, you have this huge gender imbalance. 6 men for every 1 woman.
It's crazy.
That's just
Talk about a recipe for, social unrest.
yeah.
I can't even imagine.
And so the Virginia Company
We had to do something.
recognized this. They're like,
Yeah.
okay, we got to stabilize the colony. And they were a business.
Of course, right.
They wanted to make a profit. But they also knew that, they needed to make it more appealing to
Buzzard.
people
Livable. Yeah,
Yeah.
more
for it to be sustainable, right?
yeah.
So their
It's
solution
pretty wild.
was basically, like she says, a trade in maids to be made wives.
I know.
It's so transactional.
Very transactional, yeah.
Yeah. They were literally saying, okay, we will transport you
Yeah.
to Jamestown. We'll find you a husband.
Just pay us.
But you got to pay a bride price.
Yeah, bride price.
Bride tobacco.
Tobacco, of
But
all
it
things.
was their main cash crop, right?
It was all about that tobacco.
So it's just so interesting how they commodified these women.
It's just a different world, isn't it?
It is.
You can't even imagine.
It really is a completely different world. Now, you have to understand,
Yeah.
the situation in England at the time,
Mm-hmm.
women had very limited options
Very limited.
economically. They couldn't own property.
Right.
They couldn't, work most jobs. Marriage was really the only path
Right.
to any kind of security.
The security.
But dowries.
Oh, and
a lot. It's
dowries.
very expensive.
And eligible husbands, hard to come by.
Right.
So, when you think about it from that perspective,
It makes you wonder,
it makes you wonder.
how many of these women,
Yeah. Saw this as an opportunity.
right,
Not necessarily a bad thing.
as an opportunity
Yeah.
rather than being forced into it.
Yeah, maybe they were like, sign me up.
Right.
Get me out of here.
Give me to the new world.
Yeah, and Potter, she actually found these lists
Oh, yeah, the lists.
that the Virginia Company kept with all these details about the women.
It's amazing.
Their names, their ages, their families' occupations, who recommended them.
Wow.
It's crazy.
They kept good records back then.
They did.
At least for this, right?
So we really get this glimpse
It's like a window into their life.
into their lives.
Totally.
And so we start to see that these weren't just, faceless figures.
Right.
These were daughters and sisters and friends
Real people
We've
with
got-
hopes and dreams.
on this perilous voyage.
Mm-hmm.
And it was perilous. Can you imagine 3 months at sea
3 months, that's a long time.
in the fall, crossing the Atlantic.
Oh, yeah. Like, think of those storms.
Terrible storms and the conditions on those ships.
They were given basic clothing and necessities, but, like, no coats.
No coats.
No coats for the Virginia winter.
What were they thinking?
So it's just like, I mean, talk about being ill-prepared.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine
Getting off the boat.
getting off that boat?
And it's like...
And instead of this thriving town,
It's not London.
it's just a handful of houses and this, like, crumbling fort.
Yeah, a few dozen houses, she said.
Yeah.
It's not what they were expecting, I'm sure.
It must have been such a shock.
I told her, shy.
And, you know, for some, I just wanted to find a husband.
Find some stability.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure, they'd been through so much.
Some kind of security.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for others, I imagine there was a period of adjustment,
Right, of course.
trying to figure out where they fit in
Yeah.
this new,
Yeah, this strange new world.
strange new world.
Totally different from England. But unfortunately,
Yeah.
that peace and stability that they might have been hoping for
Short-lived.
was very short-lived because just a few months after they arrived,
Oh,
in March 1622,
here we go.
disaster struck.
Yeah, the Great Indian Attack, right.
What they call.
Led by Opechancanough.
Yeah.
Leader of the Powhatan Confederacy.
And it was this coordinated assault on all of the English settlements.
And they wiped out
A third
of the colony.
That's huge.
And so
many of the brides.
of these newly arrived brides
Mm-hmm.
perished in the attack.
It's so sad.
It's just a stark reminder of
fragile.
how fragile life was back then,
Mm.
especially in those
Yeah, the early days of colonization.
early days of colonization.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine, isn't it?
It is like going through all of that and then
Right.
having that happen. But it does make you think about, like, were they victims?
Mm-hmm.
Or were they
Or adventurers.
adventurers? Right.
Right.
Both, maybe. Because you have to remember, they were
Yeah.
living in a society.
Very
Limited options.
limited options for women.
Especially in,
Marriage was kind of the only way to go.
yeah, they were expected to get married.
Mm-hmm.
But dowries were expensive,
Mm-hmm.
and eligible husbands were not exactly plentiful.
Right, exactly. So for some of them,
This might have been
this might have been like the best option.
like the best,
Yeah, their only option. Really. Yeah.
And then you also have to remember, like, this was
The age of exploration.
the age of exploration.
Right.
Like, people were excited.
The new world. Yeah.
The new world. There was this
Mystique.
this allure.
Promise of new beginnings.
Yeah.
So maybe they were thinking,
Yeah.
I could escape poverty.
Yeah.
I could.
Make a new life.
Yeah, exactly. Find a husband, have family.
Start over.
And the Virginia Company definitely played that up, right?
Oh, absolutely. Painting a picture of
Fertile land.
opportunity.
Opportunity.
Make your fortune in the new world.
Right.
So
But at the end of the day,
it was a business.
they were a business.
Right.
And they needed
To make money.
to make money.
They needed to populate that colony.
Yeah.
To make it profitable.
That it feels
a little bit
exploitative.
exploited it. Right. Like, they were using
Yeah.
these women as pawns in their game.
Right. In their money-making scheme.
Yeah. And I mean, it's hard not to see that.
Yeah. It's
Especially through a modern lens.
yeah. Right.
It's
Like,
totally different.
so different from our values today.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it does make you think, like,
It does.
what did they
Why?
think about all of this? Like, what were their
Perceptions
perceptions?
of
Because Potter mentions that,
yes.
some of the colonists noted
Right.
that
the Native Americans.
had more egalitarian societies.
Yeah, like more egalitarian.
Right. The women had more autonomy,
Yeah.
more power.
Yeah, more power.
They had a voice.
So it makes you wonder.
They know. What did these women think?
Like, what did they think?
Right. Coming from England,
Yeah.
where they had, very little power
Yeah.
to this new world,
And seeing
where
things like-
women had a much more prominent role
Yeah.
in society.
And like, imagine Anne Jackson.
Yes. And Jack,
Oh, and I will talk about
who was captured, right?
Yeah.
And lived with the Pamunkey tribe
for years.
for years. Can you imagine?
Can you imagine?
What an experience.
Right, going from
Right.
English society to that.
And being forced to adapt
Yeah.
to this completely different culture.
Like,
And then she went back to England eventually.
Yeah.
Can you imagine, like, what
was going through her head?
Right. What was going through her head? Like,
Yeah.
how did that change her perspective?
Yeah, it's almost like these women
They were living between two worlds,
between two worlds
Yeah.
with these
two totally different realities.
totally different realities. And so it's
It makes it hard to label them.
Yeah, you can't just say,
You can't just say, oh, they were victims
right,
or they were adventurers.
right.
It was much more complicated than that.
Yeah. There's so much nuance
So much nuance. Yeah.
to their stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what makes them so compelling,
Absolutely.
and why
It's so important to tell their stories.
their stories deserve to be told.
Yes, they do.
Because
To kind of remember their
courage,
courage,
resilience, their
resilience.
contributions.
Yes, they were foundational to to building America.
Building of America.
Yeah, and also
And their stories
they give us this
provide such insight.
into colonial life, the hardship.
What it was really like.
Yeah, what it was really like.
The choices they made.
Yeah.
The impact they had.
And it reminds us that
It's
history
not just dates and names.
is not just dates and names. It's about people.
It's about people.
Real people who lived and breathed and, and made choices.
And had hopes and dreams and fears.
Yeah.
And I think
that's what makes it
fascinating.
It's fascinating. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, what does this all mean?
That's the big question, right?
For us today.
Why should we care about the Jamestown brides?
Yeah, why should we care?
Well,
I mean, 4 centuries later?
I think it forces us to look at our assumptions about the past.
Yeah, to really.
And to recognize the people who are often overlooked.
In those traditional historical accounts.
Yeah, because America's story is not just about...
Right, it's not just about,
heroic pioneer.
John Smith and Pocahontas and all that.
Yeah, it's more...
It's more complicated than that.
It's messy.
It's messy.
It's complicated.
There was exploitation.
Yeah.
There was resilience.
Yeah.
Cultural clashes.
Yeah, it's a tapestry.
It is.
Of all these different things.
Of all these different threads.
And I think
by acknowledging that.
We get a richer,
nuanced and complete understanding
of history.
Yeah.
And it's really fascinating.
It is, yeah.
To see how they
navigated
this world.
A world so different from our own.
So different. And
but even though it was so different.
Yeah.
Their experiences really speak to those universal human themes of resilience, adaptation, the pursuit of a better life.
Yeah.
Which are
things that we can all
relate to.
Sure. No matter who we are.
Regardless of your background.
Yeah, and I think
that's the power of history.
The power of history.
Right. It connects us.
Across time?
Across time and space.
Yeah.
It illuminates the shared human experience.
Yeah. And it inspires us.
Yes.
To learn from the past.
As
we shape our future.
Exactly. So
we've been a journey.
Yeah, it's been a journey.
Back in time. We've explored
the lives.
Of these
remarkable
women.
Yeah, and uncovered this.
The
enduring legacy.
Surfaced with more questions.
More questions than answers.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, were they victims? Were they adventurers?
Yeah.
What were their hopes? What were their dreams?
Yeah.
How did their experience?
What did they really think?
Shape their worldview.
Yeah.
I mean, these are questions worth pondering.
Anyone who wants to delve deeper
into this fascinating chapter. I'd recommend
Jennifer Potter's book.
Jamestown
Brides.
It's a must read.
It really is.
For anyone who wants to really get a more personal understanding of these women who helped shape
early America.
Yeah.
And I have one final thought-provoking question for everyone.
Okay.
If you could go back in time and meet one of these women, what would you ask her?
Wow.
What would you want to know?
That's a great question.
About her life, her journey.
It is.
Her hopes, her fears.
I hope everyone listening will think about that. Because it's a way to
really connect
with the past.
On
a personal level.
And
to see it.
Yeah.
Not as this distant narrative.
Yeah.
But as a
collection of
individual stories. Yeah.
Worthy of
each one worthy of
our attention
and our respect.
It's so easy to get caught up in like the big picture of history,
right.
The wars and the presidents and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But we forget that it's really
individual stories that make up
real people.
Yeah, real people with hopes and dreams and
like their own struggles,
challenges.
Yeah, and like the Jamestown brides. I mean,
They had their fair share, I think,
Oh,
of the challenges.
Can't forget that.
No, we care.
And by
really engaging with their stories.
Engaging with their stories.
We honor their memory.
Yeah.
And we also
we gain
a richer understanding.
A richer understanding.
Of our own place in all of this.
Yeah, where we fit into the grand narrative.
And it reminds us that the past isn't just this.
It's not static.
Yeah.
It's not just,
getting
dates in a textbook.
Right, yeah.
It's alive.
It's alive.
It informs our present.
It influences us.
Absolutely.
Like even today,
And those echoes of those early colonial days, they're still with us.
They're still with us.
The struggles, the triumphs, the complexities, they reverberate.
And by exploring those,
we gain insight.
We gain valuable insight.
Into our own society.
Yeah.
Our values, our challenges. I mean, even you think about...
looking at the Jamestown brides.
The gender roles.
Yeah.
The economic disparity.
The impact of colonization.
All issues that...
huge issues.
We're still grappling with.
Still grappling with today. Yeah, and it's fascinating to think about...
how did they navigate that world?
Navigated that world.
So different.
They're different from our own.
Yeah.
And yet...
They show us.
They show us those
human themes.
Universal human themes.
Of resilience.
Resilience.
Adaptation.
Yeah.
The pursuit of a better life.
Yeah.
I mean, who can't relate to that?
Right. Exactly.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter where you come from.
Who you are, what your background is.
Yeah,
we're all striving for those things.
Strive for those things. And I think that's the beauty of history.
Yeah, it connects us.
Connects us.
Across time and space.
Across time and space, yeah.
And it allows us to learn.
To learn from the past.
As we shape our future.
Shape our future.
Well, I think that's a great place to...
I think so, too.
To wrap things up.
Yeah.
We've journeyed back in time.
We have.
We've explored the lives.
Of these remarkable women.
The Jamestown brides.
The Jamestown brides.
And hopefully we've uncovered.
Their enduring legacy.
And
what they mean for us.
Yes. What it means for us.
Today, and as always, we encourage you...
Yes.
To continue exploring.
To keep asking questions. To delve deeper. Into those
mysteries.
And complexities. Of history.
Until
next time.
Keep diving.